Welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned entrepreneur, here to help you navigate the messiness of mom life and biz life. Each week, my guest and I will share our experiences, insights, and tips to help you move your business from survival mode to success mode. So grab your favorite drink and let's dive in, because this girl means business. Hey there, and welcome to episode 153 of the Girl Means Business podcast. This week, we are starting off a new month. We are diving into the month of March, which seems kind of crazy, but it got me thinking about one of the things that I started doing in my business in the last year that has been really, really helpful, and I don't think we've really talked about it much here on the podcast, and that is the different numbers that I track each and every month in my business. Now, I'm going to be completely honest and say that this is something that is still very new to me because I'm not great when it comes to keeping track of the data that I should be keeping track of. I'm an Enneagram 7. I'm more of a big picture thinker. I like to be the idea person. It's difficult for me to focus on these little details, and especially hard for me to remember to keep track of these things throughout the year, but it does make things so much easier for a lot of different reasons. So I wanted to share with you kind of the system that I have started utilizing that has been really great for keeping me on track and for really helping me feel a little bit more in control of my business. Because there's a big part of me that likes to just sort of bury my head in the sand and pop every once in a while and be like, how are things going? And then get frustrated when they're not going the way I want them to. So staying on top of these numbers, staying on top of this data in my business has really helped me to feel like I am able to take back some control in my business. So there's 3 different areas that I track in my business. And what I've started doing is I have a Google Drive, and I've created a folder within that Google Drive that is just titled monthly numbers, and it has the year. So for this one, it's monthly numbers 2022. And inside of that folder, I have a couple of different Google spreadsheets. One of them is for the finances in my business. One of them is for social media numbers. And one of them is for mileage. And I'll get to each of these 3 pieces. And the mileage one may or may not apply to you depending on the business that you have, but we'll talk about it anyway. Now, I have tried tracking this content and these numbers in the past multiple times. I usually start off every single year saying, this is the year I get organized. This is the year I stay on top of my business in all these different ways. And then by March, I have completely fallen off the wagon and have not tracked anything. One of the things I've done that has really helped me to stay on top of things is I switched from trying to keep track of everything on a Google Calendar to a pen and paper calendar. Now, I still put things on my Google Calendar, don't get me wrong. I have to have it on my phone as well. But I have a physical calendar, a physical planner that I work out of every single day. So if I'm at home, it's my laptop and my planner are the 2 things that are on my desk every single day. If I take my laptop and I go work at a coffee shop, I take my planner with me as well. It is open beside me all the time. And what it allows me to do, because my planner has a big month view, but then it also has a weekly view. And the weekly view is laid out across 2 pages in columns. So I have, Monday through Saturday or through Sunday laid out in these columns, and then of course broken up in the columns by time. And I'm able to block off times during each day for different activities. So if I have a podcast interview, if I have a coaching session, if I'm hosting a clubhouse room, or if I have something that I need to be doing at a certain time, I can block it off on that calendar, and visually I can open up for the week and see exactly what I need to be doing. Now, it also allows me to create a little mini to-do list every single day. So the planner that I use is called the Commit 30 Planner. I bought it, again, for the reason of I love how it's laid out and it visually fits with how my brain works. So on this planner, when I open up to that week's view, down the left-hand side of the page, of the left side page, there is a list or a section for creating a to-do list. And it's broken into life and work. So I'm able to create a kind of a big overview of here are all the things that I kind of have a running to-do list on. It might include things like I haven't made our family yearbook for this last year yet. So that's on my running to-do list. Now it kind of gets pushed from week to week, but it's on my list to remind me. Make a doctor's appointment, schedule the kids' dentist appointments, go grocery shopping, or make sure you pick up, whatever I need from the dry cleaners or the convenience store, whatever. It's my running to-do list for life. And then I have my same running to-do list for work. So that's where I write things like, if I have a presentation that I need to work on, or a project that I need to work on, or I need to remember to send this email or edit this session, that goes on there. Now, each day on my calendar, and I promise this is getting somewhere, it's going to relate to what I'm talking about in their topic for today, I promise. Each day on the daily calendar, in the column, at the very bottom, there's 3 little yellow boxes that are probably designed for things like what's the meal plan for the week. But I use that as my running to-do list for that day. So I pick usually 3 to 4 things that I have to get done that day. And I make sure those 3 or 4 things get checked off, and then I can move to my kind of ongoing project running to-do list. So that is how I use my planner, my paper planner. Now, what I've started doing also that has been really helpful keeping track of my numbers is I make sure to put it on my calendar that I need to do my data. And I'll talk about when I go through each section kind of what that looks like. But if it's not on my calendar, I probably wouldn't remember to do it. But because I have it to do I put it on the very last day of every month, and I put it on the first day of the next month, so that if it overflows or whatever, I can do it on either day or both. But I always have it on my calendar that at the end of every month and the beginning of every month, I'm tracking these certain things in my business. And doing that for the last several months has kept me on track. It's kept me keeping up with these different numbers. So if you have thought or you have tried, like me in the past, to keep up with these things and it's overwhelming. I know there's tons of apps and programs you can use. This has been the simplest, most effective way I have found for reminding myself to do that. There's something about seeing it on that paper, seeing it on that calendar, not just on my phone, but literally like beside me all day, every day, saying, here is what you need to do today. And if it's on that today list, it's going to get done. Okay, so let's go into the different numbers that I keep track of. I'm going to start with the simplest one first, and it's the one that you may or may not need in your business, and that is mileage. As a photographer, I do a lot of my sessions on location, especially when I was shooting weddings. Anytime I do high school seniors or branding sessions, I typically do them on location or at someone else's studio. Now, if I'm doing boudoir sessions, I have my home studio that I use for that doesn't require mileage. However, if you travel for anything at all outside of your home for your business, it's smart to keep track of your mileage. So that might mean even things like if you go and make a delivery, if you run to the post office to mail a product to a client, if you are going to go have coffee with someone as a working coffee date. Those are all things you can track your mileage for. I use the QuickBooks app. So I have QuickBooks that I keep track of a lot of my finances on, but I also have the QuickBooks app, and it allows me I can turn on that it tracks my mileage for me automatically, and then I can just go back and label it. Now, I also, because I like to have everything in one place, so instead of keeping everything for mileage in one place and social in one place and finances in another place, this is where my Google spreadsheets come in. So inside of that Google Drive folder, I have my mileage spreadsheet. So I put in each month, and then I put in the number of miles that I traveled that month for work. And then if it ever comes to the point where I get audited, I have the actual reason for each mileage trip in my QuickBooks app. So for example, in the month of January, I had, I believe, 5 photo shoots where I had to go on location for. And so I tracked all 5 of those mileages. Plus I had a client meeting that I did. I had an in-person mentoring session that I did at a coffee shop. So I had about 8 or 10 different mileage trips. I had them all combined on my spreadsheet. However, if I go into my QuickBooks program, they are labeled as for like on January 12th, traveled to such and such location for photo shoot. January 16th, traveled to such and such location for this other, photo shoot or coffee date or whatever, in the event that I ever need that information.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you have been listening to the Girl Means Business podcast for any amount of time, then you know my love of email marketing runs deep. Not only is it a great way to generate new leads, but it's one of the most effective methods for nurturing warm leads and turning them into sales. Now, over the years, I've tested several email platforms, and my favorite by far is Flowdesk. Not only do they make email marketing simple and easy, even for the technically challenged, but they have everything you need to create stunning emails, capture leads, make sales, and automate the entire process, giving you time back in your busy day. And the cherry on top is you're only charged one flat fee no matter how many subscribers you have. So while other platforms will increase your price when you go over your pricing tier limit, Flowdesk has no price increases or hidden fees. If you're ready to give Flowdesk a try, click the link below in the show notes to save 50% off your first year. Let Flowdesk help you design emails people will love. Click the link below and check it out. I have a feeling you're going to love it just as much as I do. But for the kind of big picture stuff, when I put it in my spreadsheet, I just put sort of the collective mileage for that month. All right, so that's mileage. The next thing I track is my finances. Now, this is one that I really struggled with for a long time because money gives me anxiety. As you probably know, you've heard me say here on the podcast, my goal for this year is to work on my relationship with money, my mindset around money, because it's always been something that I have feared a little bit and had anxiety around. And so the idea of actually seeing it in numbers in black and white, it terrified me. And so for the longest time I did. I kind of just buried my head in the sand and let my bank account do what it did. But I have found that it's actually the opposite effect. When I bury my head in the sand and I don't know what my finances are doing, it causes me more stress and anxiety. If I actually sit down and keep track of and know, okay, where is this going and what's that being paid for and how much am I spending here and how much am I making each time, it helps me feel like I have a little bit more of a grasp and power over that stress and anxiety around finances. So here's what I've started doing. And again, this is super simplified. I could probably do this in QuickBooks, I use QuickBooks for tax purposes, but just for my month to month, I have another spreadsheet inside of that same folder, and I've marked it out for each month. And I have the sort of basic tax categories. So things like travel, meals, I'm trying to think what else is on there, business materials, advertising, those kind of categories, the ones that when it comes tax time, I'm going to be utilizing to do my taxes in my business. And each month I print off a physical statement of that month's activity in my business account. And I start off with the income for that month. And then I start calculating each expense. So I calculate all of the expenses I had for travel. I calculate all the expenses I had for advertising, for materials, for apps and software. And I take those numbers and I plug them into my spreadsheet. Now, a lot of these are going to be the same each month, like apps and software. I kind of know, each month I'm paying the same amount because I'm paying on, certain apps that I have on a monthly recurring basis. Or that might be, I pay for them yearly. And so every January, it's going to be a little higher because that's when some of these yearly app payments come out of my account. Now, I say again, this does feel very simplified, but that's how I work. That's how my brain works, is I don't need complicated. I don't need these super color-coded big spreadsheets. Those give me anxiety. But for me to have just the simple in January, I made this much, I spent on these categories, this much, and then this is what my profit was. And then as I go throughout the year, I have it kind of totaling up at the bottom of, okay, what's my total income? What's my total spend on advertisement? What's my total spend on business materials? What's my total spend on travel? And then what's my total profit? And so it's doing these calculations. It's super simplified, but it helps me so much to, again, feel like I am in control. Now, here's a quick little example of why this is so important. I know I keep saying this, I'm a broken record, but for the longest time, I did just kind of ignore my finances. And I was like, well, if I have money in the account, I can spend it. If I don't, I don't. What I discovered when I started kind of really digging into what was coming and going each month was that I was overpaying and double paying for some things. So for my photography business, I have a subscription with Adobe. So that's who owns and manages like Photoshop, Lightroom, Bridge, several of these programs that photographers use. I have a subscription with them so that I get access to their photographer bundle, which is, things like I just mentioned. You get these certain apps of theirs to use. What I realized was that I was being drafted from my bank account $10.66 every month twice. And one of them would come out on the 14th of every month and one would come out on the 16th of every month. And I was like, well, that seems odd. But again, every time I saw it, I kind of just assumed that it was the same payment. I was just seeing it twice for some reason. But once I really started looking deeply into my accounts each month, I realized I was being double charged. Now you may say, well, Kendra, it's $10.66. It's not going to make or break your business. I get that. But every penny counts. And so I was able to go in and realize that I actually had 2 Adobe accounts. For whatever reason, I don't know how it happened, but I had signed up for 2 accounts all under the same email address. I'm not sure how this slipped past me. So I was able to cancel one of those accounts. I also realized that I was paying for an app program or a marketing program that I no longer really needed in my business. I wasn't utilizing it enough to make the cost worth it. So when I started going through my finances every single month and really breaking down every single penny I spent, I found places I could cut back and save money and put that money towards other things I really wanted to invest in my business. Now, I realize there are some of you out there who are probably really detail oriented and you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, duh, this is how you're supposed to do it. And why wouldn't you do it this way from the get-go? I get it. You're a different breed. You are someone who loves spreadsheets and numbers. That is not me. And if you are running a business as a creative, you're probably a lot like me. So this portion or this episode may just be for those of us whose brains don't work in a spreadsheet kind of way. So if you're listening and you're a spreadsheet fanatic and you've done this from day one, just please give the rest of us some grace. Just humor us a little bit and, let us go about our ways learning how to jump in slowly into the world of spreadsheets. All right, part 3 here is I want to talk about how I have started tracking my social media numbers. So if you've spent any time on social media, you know that there are some analytics that we like to look at when we're figuring out how well our social media accounts are doing. The top one everybody knows about is follower count. We all want to know, how can we get more followers? How many followers do I have? How does this look? So on and so forth. One of the things I noticed last year was I started really focusing a lot on growing my Instagram account. And I not so much just in followers, but in community base. I do want to, I want to grow my following. I want to grow the community, but I also wanted to make sure that it was an engaged, active community. So I got towards the end of last year and about October-ish, and I started looking at my insights, trying to figure out, okay, well, how much have I grown this year? What is my goal for the next last 3 months of the year? What do I want to accomplish? And I realized that I could only go back into my insights the last 90 days. And that wasn't enough for me because I wanted to know from the whole year. I wanted to be like, where did I start and where am I ending? And that is one limitation that the insights inside of Instagram has, is that they do only go back as far as the last 90 days. So what I started doing is, again, I went to my Google Drive, I created a spreadsheet, And similar to when I track my finances each month, I started tracking my Instagram growth each month. So I go in, I created my list. I had my 12 months of the year. I started in last October, but then I created a new one for the beginning of 2022. So January through December. So at the end of January, I went in, I put in how many followers I started the month with, and then how many followers I ended the month with. But I don't just want to know a follower count. I want a little more information than that. So if you go into your Instagram insights, under total followers, you can select, the last month. So I would go in and put, January 1st through January 31st. And then it would let me see not only how many people had followed me overall, like what's my overall total, but also how many follows I actually received and how many unfollows I received. So if I go look right now for the month of January, I had 162 people followed me. 65 of those unfollowed me, maybe not the same from that group, but overall 65 people unfollowed me, and 97 was my overall total followers from that month. So it allows me to kind of see, okay, am I noticing some trends as I go through? Are there certain months where my follower count was really high? I had lots of people follow me. Did I have lots of people unfollow me? What was going on? So the next thing I wanted to track, besides just the followers and unfollowers, was what did my content look like? So when you log into your insights, you see a couple things. You can see how many accounts you've reached, how many accounts you've been engaged with, and then your total followers. So I went into each of these, and I'd like to go and see, okay, how many accounts has my account reached? And then as I'm tracking each month, I can look for trends. So was there a trend where I had 3 months of an incline in my reach and then I dipped down? Or did I dip down and then I had a spike? And then I go and I look at my content. So after I track my reach, I look at what type of content did I create in the last 30 days? And when you pull up your content, so if you go into your insights, you'll see the section right below where you have all your overview, you'll see content shared. I can click on that and I can say, okay, in the last 30 days, here's the content I've created. It'll show me all of my content I've created on my feed. And then I can choose, okay, do I want to see how many of them had the most follows? Which ones of mine created the most followers? And so I can go and look at that and I can go, oh, okay, well, this month I created 5 different pieces of content that got me more followers. So maybe I need to create more content like that. Or I can look and see, oh, you know what? None of my content got me new followers. So I need to be creating different content on my feed. So again, this is really, really good for helping you create a strategy around your content and around your social media. So what all of this tells me is it's not just about how many followers did I start with, how many did I end with. It's about understanding what's working and what's not working. So when you go in and you can look at and you can track, in my spreadsheet, I put down what was my most viewed or my most liked post, which post got me the most followers. And then I look at what type of content was getting the most views. So was it carousels? Was it video? Was it static posts? Was it reels? What was getting the most interaction and bringing the most engagement? These are all things that I track each and every month. And so my hope after doing this for an entire year, because I just started last October, so I didn't have the full year from 2021, is that I will start to hone in on a more specific strategy for growing my community on Instagram. So if social media is something that you really want to build up and you want to improve on in your business and you want to use it as a tool for getting more business, you need to start tracking these insights. Now, if you're using Facebook, or maybe you have a Facebook community, a Facebook group, you can still track these insights or similar insights. You can track, how many people are following my page on Facebook at the beginning of the month versus the end of the month. How many people are in my Facebook group at the beginning of the month versus the end of the month? Can you see how many, posts what was the engagement on your post? How many comments did you receive? Who are the most active people in your group? These are all things you can start to track. Whatever is valuable to you, you create the the system you want to track. You create the categories you want to look at. But having that data to look back on, I think is super helpful if this is a strategy for marketing your business that you want to create a really strong strategy around. One more thing I do for my social media that's been really fun, and it's just more of like a fun little tool, visual tool, is at the beginning of each month, so on January 1st, February 1st, and then I did March 1st, I've taken a screenshot of my Instagram feed or my Instagram homepage. So the one that shows, like my profile photo, my followers, my bio, all that kind of stuff. And I'm keeping those inside that Google folder as well, with the hope that it will help me, one, give me a visual sort of growth tool, but also sometimes when you have those really low days, when you have those days where you're just kind of like, oh, nothing is working, nothing is going the way I want it to, it is a visual reminder to you to look and see how far you've come. And I didn't do this in the past. I have a couple screenshots here and there that I'd use like for Canva, and I would screenshot and upload it to Canva. And I can go back and kind of find those from time to time. But my goal with doing this every single month is that in 6 months or a year from now, I can look back at that January, February post, that screenshot, and visually see how far I've come. Whether that means that my, the way I write my bio has changed and that's helped a lot, whether it is the followers I have or even how much content I am creating. That's one thing a lot of people overlook on their Instagram analytics is how much content are you creating? If you start the year off with, okay, you've posted 100 posts and then you end the end of the year or even the end of the month. Let's go with the end of the month. So let's say you start January and you take a screenshot and it shows that you have 1,000 followers and you've posted 100 pieces of content to your feed. And then you end the month and you look at that same screenshot and you think, okay, well, I still only have 1,000 followers and my post count is only 110. That means you've only posted 10 times the entire month of January. That could be correlated to why you're not seeing growth in your followers. Now, if you end the month and you're like, okay, my post count is 200, where it was 100, it's now 200, and my followers are up from 1,000 to 1,500, then you can see a positive correlation. You can see that, okay, the more content I'm putting out, the more likely I am to get seen, followed, grow this community. So there's so many different pieces of this data that you can look into inside your Instagram account that you can be tracking, you can be paying attention to. Even if all you do is take a screenshot at the beginning of every month, put that in your calendar, I think you're going to start to see that it helps you to really recognize the growth you're having in your business or the lack of growth that'll spur you into doing more to help you grow your following and your account. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And as always, you can find any links or resources mentioned in today's show down in the show notes. And if we're not friends outside the podcast yet, then what are you waiting for? Come find me on Instagram at Girl Means Business and send me a DM letting me know what you thought of today's episode or any of the past episodes you've listened to. You can also take a screenshot of today's episode and post it to your stories, tagging at Girl Means Business, and I'll give you a shout out on my page. I love connecting with you and hearing all about your business and can't wait to get to know you more. I hope you have a wonderful week and I will meet you back here next week, same time, same place.